Well, good morning, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're checking in across the world. My name is Kyle, and tonight you're looking at a live view of the full moon ahead of tonight's lunar eclipse. This lunar eclipse will be the longest partial lunar eclipse since the year 1440, so quite a long time. The partial phase will begin at roughly 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and will culminate around 5:30 a.m. with the maximum eclipse starting at around 4 a.m., all times Eastern Standard. During tonight's stream, I'll be taking your questions about tonight's lunar eclipse. If you haven't already, please share your views of the eclipse with your friends and family on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Get the word out, get people excited about astronomy and the nighttime sky. It's what we love to do. Now tonight you can expect to see the moon gradually diminish over the course of the evening. In about 15 minutes, you can expect to see the first bit of the moon diminish, known as C1 or contact 1. This will be followed by a gradual dimming of the moon as it begins to slip behind the Earth's umbra or shadow and will gradually begin to turn a deep red. I see we have quite a wide range of people watching, everywhere from Arizona to the Philippines to everywhere across the world. And let me tell you, it is so fantastic to see you all here participating in our stream tonight. We're so excited, and you can clearly see the moon starting to slip behind the Earth's umbra or shadow. First question tonight coming from Melanie. They're asking, why hasn't it happened for 500 years? That is because this eclipse is so incredibly close to a total lunar eclipse that, perceptibly speaking, there's no difference. So there hasn't been a partial lunar eclipse that has been this close to a total in well over 400 years. If it were a total lunar eclipse, then it would basically be no different. We've got quite a show in store for you guys tonight. Unfortunately, I was unable to set up a view of the eclipse from my vantage point in Florida, but we've been able to provide you with two distinct views. One through an Apertura 60mm refractor provided by one of our team members in Tucson, Arizona, and then another view that has been graciously provided to us by a gentleman known as Brian P. Cox in California. We're going to be having two, hopefully three later on, views of the eclipse for you guys to see. We were concerned that clouds would be able to get in the way of the stream tonight, but fortunately that has not been the case. We have been seeing good weather so far throughout the stream, and fingers crossed this continues. The main stream was going to be originally hosted in Florida, but unfortunately the weather just did not cooperate in Florida, so we are left with beautiful views provided to us from Arizona as well as Brian Cox in California. So thank you very much to them. See one question on YouTube, and they're asking, is it okay to be outside or is it better to see from the inside? Definitely go outside. Don't sit inside, watch this eclipse. Go outside, watch it, share it with your friends and your family, get people excited about astronomy in the nighttime sky. Quick favor for those on YouTube, it is very hard to see your questions with how many are coming in. So if you want your question asked, please add us at High Point Scientific in the chat, and we will try to answer them as we see them coming up. One thing I love to do during these live streams is I love to see where you guys are all checking in from. So in the chat, let us know where you're watching this from. I'll tell you, I'm personally live streaming from Lakeland, Florida, so I'll be really curious to see where in the world we're all watching from tonight. We have people coming in from Alaska, Pennsylvania from Joyce, Lisa checking in from Flint, Michigan, Dakota checking in from Ohio, Dennis checking in from New Jersey. Amazing to see you all here. I hope you guys are enjoying the views. And again, like this video, share it with your friends, get the word out, get people excited about astronomy in the nighttime sky. It's what we love to do. And most of all, go outside and enjoy the eclipse. If you want to, you can bring your phone out with you and listen to my live stream, but go outside. If you have a clear night, go outside and enjoy the lunar eclipse because it is spectacular. We have Awesome Sky checking in from central Nebraska. Cloudy here. So sorry to hear that. We have a question from Becca, and Becca wants to know, do you know if in our lifetime the moon will align with the planets? They actually do so quite frequently. The moon was in what's called conjunction with the planets Venus and Mercury and Jupiter and Saturn not too long ago. So the moon and the planets do align quite frequently. I guess you could say when it does happen, your stars align. I apologize if I make any ridiculous puns during this live stream. You'll have to forgive me. Now this eclipse represents the second lunar eclipse of the year. And while it's only a partial eclipse, a little more than 97% of the moon's surface will dip behind the Earth's shadow. This will result in the moon turning that deep, ghostly red associated with a lunar eclipse. We are only a few minutes away from that partial phase beginning, and as you can clearly tell by the live stream, the moon is starting to slip behind the Earth's shadow. Now the eclipse will reach its maximum point in about 2 hours at roughly 4 a.m. Eastern Time, after which we'll wrap up around 5 a.m. Eastern Time this morning, because we've got to get some sleep. We're going to be here all night for you guys though, answering your questions about astronomy in the nighttime sky. Claudia wants to know, do you think the moon is a giant satellite? I do. I think it's a giant natural satellite. Becca wants to know, is there a full eclipse happening this year or did you miss it? You did unfortunately miss the full eclipse. That was back in May. We live streamed that as well. But there was a full lunar eclipse visible in the West Coast about, I believe it was in May 26th, if I'm not mistaken. Anna says, the moon is right above me, but it's too cloudy in Florida. Also in Florida, also share your pain. Deep Sky Dan checking in. They say, hey Kyle, waiting for the moon to come up here in Japan. Hope you guys can get a view of the eclipse. Also, if you're looking to photograph a lunar eclipse, we recommend checking out our latest video on YouTube about how to photograph a lunar eclipse. It's a bit of a how-to guide I've put together on my personal method of photographing lunar eclipses. Jason checking in with clear skies in Southern California. Felix with a fantastic question, unrelated to the eclipse, but I love to answer it, and they're asking, why is Halley's Comet so rarely seen? So for those who don't know what they're talking about, Halley's Comet, also known as 1P Comet Halley, is the brightest known periodic comet in the night sky. It was the first comet to be identified as having a periodic orbit, so that means it comes back roughly every 80 years or so. It is the only comet to be able that you can actually see twice in your lifetime. So the reason it takes so long is because it has a very long orbital period. Now, the reason lunar eclipses do not occur every single month during the full moon is because the moon's orbit is inclined roughly 5 degrees to the ecliptic, or the path where the planets follow around the sun. This means that only once or twice a year the moon will slip behind the Earth's shadow. Now, fun fact, eclipses actually happen in seasons. There will be a solar eclipse following this lunar eclipse in December during the new moon, but unfortunately that will only be visible in the South Pole. And if you're wondering why the view switched or flipped around, it is because we switched to a different camera. Again, we have a camera set up here. You're looking at a view from Arizona, and we also have a view from California, and I expect to add a view from Ohio later tonight. Now, tonight's full moon also represents the beaver moon. And yes, some people also call a lunar eclipse a blood moon. However, we at High Point Scientific don't like to call it a blood moon because that makes it sound like it's something terrifying, something to be afraid of. But in actuality, it is a beautiful thing to see. So we are about an hour and 46 minutes away from the period of maximum eclipse. In about an hour and a half or so, you should begin to see that red coming onto the lunar surface. Joan checking in a little late, and they're wanting to know, why do they call it a partial lunar eclipse? Now, they call it a partial lunar eclipse because the moon won't completely slip behind the Earth's shadow tonight. It will do so about 97%. So thus, a partial lunar eclipse. Had it been 100%, it would be known as a total lunar eclipse. Amanda's saying, every live stream I look at, the orientation of the moon is different. Well, hold on to your hat because we're going to be flipping around a lot in this live stream. We have 265 people watching on Facebook and 420 people watching on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, my name is Kyle with High Point Scientific, and we're so excited to be sharing with you guys these live views of tonight's partial lunar eclipse. Now, out of curiosity, comment in the chat if this is your first time watching a lunar eclipse. I remember my first lunar eclipse when I was about 15 years old. I believe it was in December 2010. And it blew my mind. Watching it in the sky, I was just dumbfounded by how deep red the moon could turn during an eclipse. So if this is your first lunar eclipse, let us know in the comments. We want to hear your experiences watching this first ever lunar eclipse of yours. Kevin wants to know, how often should you take an image? 15 minutes, 20 minutes, etc. Checking in from Brownwood, Texas. You should probably try to take an image every minute if you're doing photography of the eclipse, if you want to do a time lapse. If not, 5 minutes should be enough, because as you can clearly see, every 5 minutes or so, the shadow is getting a little darker on the moon. Amy wanting to know, how many eclipses are there in a year? It depends. This year there are 2 lunar eclipses, and then there's going to be a solar eclipse in December, and there was also a partial solar eclipse, well, an annular solar eclipse over portions of the world, but a partial in the United States back in June. And again, that's not a coincidence. The eclipses happen in seasons. The lunar eclipse in May was followed by a solar eclipse in June. This lunar eclipse will be followed by a solar eclipse in December. Jim saying, this is the first time watching and taking photos with H tracking mount. That is awesome, Jim. I hope to see your photos. Again, these views are being provided to us by Brian P. Cox, who has graciously donated their time to be able to help us live stream tonight's eclipse. And this is also a view from Arizona. Question asking, will you show a live about a solar eclipse? In 2023 and 2024, there will be an annular and a total solar eclipse visible over the United States. I will be live streaming that. I will actually be traveling for that one. I will make it a point to travel across the United States to be able to see those 2 solar eclipses. I actually saw the total solar eclipse in 2017, and I can tell you, it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. I could feel the temperature drop as the moon passed in front of the sun, and I could hear the animals, the birds, and the bugs all start to come out as they thought it was like nighttime, and it was the coolest experience. Obviously, this isn't a solar eclipse, but this is still a really cool experience nonetheless. Again, folks, if you're enjoying these views of the moon tonight, please share it with your friends and your family. Let's get that view count up a little bit. Let's get people excited. Let's get as many people as possible here enjoying the views of the eclipse tonight. Cyber Squid Army asking, is it true that the moon tastes like cheese? One day if I go there, I'll find out and I'll let you know. Max Pro saying, terrible weather in Florida. Checking in from Lakeland here, and I can tell you, it really is awful tonight. Natalie's saying, how much time left? An hour and 38 minutes. There is a countdown timer on the upper right-hand side of the screen for your information on when the eclipse will reach its maximum. But what's kind of cool about a lunar eclipse is that you can see what looks like the moon's almost going into reverse phases. It was full, now it's a partial, and then soon it's going to be a half moon, and then it's going to be completely gone soon. Yeah, lots of people coming in saying they have clouds tonight. I think the coverage tonight might be one of the worst I've ever seen for an eclipse. I think only a few states like Illinois or Kentucky or Tennessee or Texas have a clear view of the eclipse tonight. Although I could be mistaken, and I would love to be mistaken. But I can echo your disappointment if you're clouded out, because I'm also clouded out tonight. Again, another question. Will it turn red when it hits its peak? Yes, it will. Clear in Flagstaff, clear in Nebraska. That is fantastic news. I'm so glad to hear that some people have clear views of the eclipse tonight. Just make sure if you have clear skies tonight, make sure you're out there watching the eclipse. Thank you for watching the stream, but go outside and watch too. Question from Sherry on Facebook, and they're asking if the eclipse in 2023 will be one that will be visible in Missouri and other states, and that is correct, it will be. The 2023 and 2024 solar eclipses should be visible across the Midwest. Now, currently, the moon is about 400,000 kilometers away from the Earth in the constellation of Taurus. And in Greek mythology, Taurus was known as the bull as well as the enemy to Orion the hunter. Taurus is a zodiacal constellation. You may find the open clusters, the Hyades as well as the Pleiades in the constellation of Taurus. You may also find the Crab Nebula, also known as Messier 1, as it was the first nebula discovered by the astronomer Charles Messier. And that nebula is the leftovers from a supernova that was visible in the night sky in the year 1054. This supernova was so bright that it was actually recorded by Native Americans in the form of Native American paintings. We can actually, thanks to those paintings, determine the exact date that supernova happened. And it was visible in the night sky in July 4th, 1054. Just a bit of fun fact while we wait for the eclipse to reach its maximum. As you can see, we're well into the partial eclipse now. You can see a big chunk of the moon has already been taken out. We still have an hour and a half to go. Does anybody feel like they're seeing double? Well, it's not just you. Here are two of our views provided side by side of the lunar eclipse showing you as it's unfolding. Something really cool you can note here, if you look closely, you'll note the curvature of the shadow. That is actually a result of the curvature of the Earth. It was the first sign that we were able to discover thousands of years ago that the Earth was not a flat object, that it was spherical because it had a spherical shadow. Just to irk any flat earthers out there. Skila says it's clear and cold in Oklahoma. Bennett saying it's clear skies in North Carolina. Like I said, I hope you guys are out there enjoying these views of the eclipse. I'll tell you personally, even though I can't be out there tonight because of the poor weather, I'm enjoying this experience so much with all of you, being able to communicate and talk to you guys about astronomy in the nighttime sky and this beautiful eclipse. Puerto Rico apparently is having a good view of it. That's really good to hear. I'm really excited that you guys are able to see it too. Gracie asking why are there two? I was just showing off. Decided to add a second moon orbiting the Earth just to mess with you guys. Briggs CA61 asking, is this stream black and white or in color? It is in color. You will be able to see that red that I'm talking about. Becca asking, would eclipses affect tides? No, they would not affect tides. Although the moon does affect the tides, obviously, a full moon will, moons in a certain position around its orbit will impact the tides. A eclipse itself will not impact the tides or anything. Fun fact, if you were standing on the surface of the moon right now, you would actually see a solar eclipse. Because you would see the Earth going in front of the sun. Tammy asking, will the stream be available later to share with others? And absolutely in always. Skila asking, when is totality here in Central? Well, we're not going to have a totality tonight because this isn't a total lunar eclipse, but the maximum partial phase will be at 1 hour and 26 minutes from now, so roughly 3 a.m. Central. Somebody says the clouds are dispersing in Port St. Lucie. Interesting. Port St. Lucie is in Florida, for the record, where I'm also at. I kind of want to go outside and take a quick peek, but at the same time, I'm afraid of losing the stream. Now, we had a pretty exciting year so far of celestial events. The last lunar eclipse in May, oppositions of Jupiter and Saturn, as well as this lunar eclipse tonight, and then a solar eclipse that will happen in a few weeks. And let's not forget the partial solar eclipse that was visible over the New England and Canada a few months ago as well. We're also excited to report that we may conclude 2021 with a bang as another comet, C/2021 A1 Leonard, appears poised to become naked eye at the end of the month. And what that means is the comet will actually be visible to the unaided eye without binoculars or a pair of telescopes. If you remember Comet Neowise last year, there's a possibility this comet might be similar in brightness. We're really excited about that. Unfortunately, it's going to depend on how the comet evolves over the next few weeks. But Comet Leonard could become as bright as magnitude 0 due to a phenomenon known as forward scattering. I've heard reports that the tail might be as long as 20 degrees in the sky, so that would actually make it bigger than Neowise was in the sky at its brightest. Very excited about that as an astrophotographer. One thing I want to do with my life is discover a comet, and that's a goal in my life. I'm going to have an entire dedicated astrophotography setup just to find comets in the sky. That way I can say that I have a comet named after me. It will happen. Bennett asking, what is your primary setup as an astrophotographer? Ooh, that's a good question. I use a camera with an IMX 183 sensor, as well as an Apertura 72 EDR with a Celestron CGX mount. Any non-ash photographers out there might not know what the heck I'm talking about, but for any ash photographers out there, you'll probably know that's a pretty high-end setup. Derek wanting to know, what is a good time-lapse interval? I'd say one shot every minute for the span of 3 or 4 hours. Tommy asking, where is this view from? This view is from California right now. Provided by Brian P. Cox. Checking in on YouTube, and I see we have about 500 people watching, as well as nearly 300 people watching on Facebook. Thank you guys so much. You have no idea how much this means to us. It means to me especially. I love talking to you guys, and the more people here, the better. I love the opportunity to be able to show and share these views of the eclipse with you guys. If you like this content, be sure to, on YouTube, like and subscribe, and on Facebook, share it with your friends and your family. Just get the word out. Let's get people excited about this. I know there's probably lots of other live streams going on, but I feel like our view's pretty good too tonight. Becca wants to know, when will the comet become visible potentially? Right now it's visible as an 8th magnitude comet, so that just simply means it's a comet that's not visible in anything other than the biggest of telescopes. That being said, over the next few weeks, the comet will continue to get closer and closer to the sun, so around the first, second week of December, it might become naked eye visible. I believe around December 11th. On December 6th, you can find the comet very close to the star Arcturus. Seeing it asked, but I'll answer it again. Why is this eclipse longer than the others? And that's a good question. It's a little difficult to explain because this eclipse isn't a total lunar eclipse. And the moon's also close to apogee, or apogee just simply means its furthest point away from the Earth along its orbit around the Earth. It won't completely go into the Earth's shadow because it's a partial eclipse. It will barely just miss it. Because of that, it will skirt around the entire parameter of the Earth's shadow, and as a result will be in a partial phase longer than a normal total lunar eclipse would. In my opinion, it's kind of silly, a silly thing to hype up, because at the end of the day, this is not going to look any different from a total lunar eclipse, and it won't last much longer than a total lunar eclipse would. So the longest partial lunar eclipse in 400 years, I believe since 1440, but not necessarily the longest lunar eclipse ever. See a question asking if the if you'll go blind looking at the moon tonight, and you're thinking of a solar eclipse, my friend. You won't go blind looking at the moon. If anything, it's going to be dim enough to where it's only going to be as bright as some of the fainter stars in the sky in terms of its overall surface brightness. So that won't do any harm. I see Astro Backyard in the chat saying, "Thank you for the live view. Cloudy here in Ontario, Canada for now." Thank you so much, Trevor, for checking in. Really sorry about the cloudy skies. Richard saying, as the telescope cools, you lose focus. That is true. One thing I'll point out as this lunar eclipse progresses, you might notice more and more stars appearing in the night sky. So if you're at a dark sky location, this is especially noticeable as the light pollution from the cities won't be blocking the views of the stars out at a dark sky site. So you might suddenly notice tons and tons of stars in the nighttime sky. I've seen some of the best lunar eclipse photography showing the eclipsed moon in front of like the Milky Way, for example. It really is that dim. You can take a 30 to 40 second shot of the moon while it's fully eclipsed, and you can actually see nebula in the background. Sarah wanting to know, do you think we'll be able to see a red glow if we have cloud cover? You will not, unfortunately. What you'll see is that glow begin to diminish as the apparent magnitude will drop considerably. That'd be really cool though, but it won't be nearly bright enough to produce any glow whatsoever. Joan asking is if I've walked outside and taken a look yet. I have not. I really should. If some people in Florida are reporting seeing the eclipse, especially not far away from me, I should probably take a glance. Kathleen's asking, even though it's cloudy outside, will the sky get darker as the moon gets covered? Yes, actually, I didn't think about that, but If you look up in the sky, you notice everything's getting darker, like the moon glow isn't illuminating the clouds. That is from the eclipse. So in some way, even though it's cloudy, you might be able to still view the eclipse. Now, if you're clouded out, no worries. This will not be the only lunar eclipse. As a matter of fact, there will be a total lunar eclipse visible in just a few months, again over the entire United States and Canada and South America. So, fingers crossed that we get good weather for that. Again, these views coming from Brian Peacocks, who has graciously donated their time to be able to help live stream tonight. Their help is incredibly appreciated. We're not far away from seeing the moon begin to turn a blood, sort of pale red color as a result of entering the Earth's shadow. Very excited about seeing that. That's always spectacular to see, whether it's in person or on a stream. It's just something cool to see. Kyle, back again. I just went outside really quickly to see if I could actually see the eclipse myself, and unfortunately, I can see the light from the moon, but it's still completely covered up. If you have a keen eye, you might also notice the Pleiades next to the moon tonight. Really quickly, I'm switching over to Stellarium really quick, and you can clearly see the Pleiades right next to the moon tonight. So if you're out and you're taking photos, make sure you get the Pleiades in the field of view. I would say a 135 to maybe 100 millimeter lens would be enough to be able to see the moon next to the Pleiades. So if you're taking photos tonight, go out and get those shots of the Pleiades. And now back to your live view. Again, folks, keep your questions coming. I love answering them. They're coming by really fast, so it's hard for me to answer all of your questions. But I'm going to try to answer any questions I can see that I feel like are relevant or haven't been asked yet. So keep them coming. I love hearing you guys, your stories, your perspectives of this eclipse. It really just means so much to me to hear so many people getting to experience this beautiful celestial event. We have some people already reporting a color change here in Georgia. That color change referring to some of the red of the moon coming out. So we're going to bump up the exposure really quickly to see if any of that deep reds are starting to come out. So what you're going to see happen is the moon begin to brighten up. And this is kind of tricky to do with a camera because the human eye is fantastic at capturing that sort of high dynamic range of the moon with a dim eclipsed phase with a bright uneclipsed phase. But a camera is not so good at that. So as we adjust the exposure, you might notice the image get blown out. But we're just going to check to see if any of that red's visible yet. Yeah, so it doesn't look like we're able to pick up the red quite yet. Oh, maybe. Oh, there we go. Just a little hint of it, but yes. Oh, there it is. We can clearly see the reds of the moon coming out, and we adjust the exposure a little bit. So that eclipse is happening. So as we get closer to the maximum eclipse, we'll be sure to bump the exposure up some more to get more of that reds. So we have our third view online now. This is coming from Ohio, and you can clearly see a view of the moon as it starts to become more eclipsed. Our team member here is using a DSLR camera through their Newtonian telescope, I believe. Then what they're doing is taking a sequence of exposures in a program called Digicam Control. And as the moon gets closer to totality, you'll see more images come in. Hello, everybody, again. Kyle checking in once again. You are looking at a live view of tonight's lunar eclipse. We are about less than an hour away from maximum eclipse. I just saw a question go by coming from Kevin, and they're asking, is this the most it's going to eclipse? No, it's going to eclipse a little bit more. You should see on the bottom a little bit of the moon uneclipsed, but in about 30 minutes or so, we'll start adjusting exposure to bring out more of those deep reds. Again, we have 3 views set up tonight. We have a view from Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. We have one view from California, currently fighting some clouds. That's provided by Brian P. Cox, as well as a view from Ohio. So these 3 views are our views of the eclipse tonight. And again, if you have any questions or comments or any stories you'd like me to share, feel free to post them in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to share them or answer them as they come up. Again, there's quite a few people watching tonight, so a little hard to go back and forth, but we'll try our best. Kathy coming in from Coral Springs, Florida. Can't see anything. Skila asks, are we switching from West Coast to Central? Yes, we are. We're switching all over the United States. Uh, 28 degrees Fahrenheit in southwestern Illinois. Ew. I used to live in Peoria, Illinois for a year or so, and, I couldn't take the cold. I'm so glad to be living in Florida for that reason. Again, this view is coming from Arizona. We've got a question coming in from Asia, and they're asking, will we see anything unusual with the full moon tonight? How does that work? You won't be able to see the lunar eclipse, but you will see a nice, bright, nearly full moon your time tonight. I was just scrolling back on my phone for about an hour or so, and it's amazing. Going back in the time for this live stream, about an hour or so, it's amazing how much the moon has changed. It's incredible to see how fast this happens. Just like suddenly an hour, if you had no idea what was going on, you'd look up and be like, where'd the moon go? If you just went inside for an hour or so and came back out and you had no idea this was happening, it'd be a little bit startling. Amanda asking, at what point does it turn red? You might be able to see the red of the moon already, but we'll be adjusting the exposure here in about 20 minutes or so to be able to really bring those reds out. Again, a camera struggles to adapt for a high dynamic range object like a moon in a partial eclipse. So the reds, to bring out the reds more, you have to up the exposure a lot because it's a lot dimmer than the uneclipsed portions of the moon. As a result, the uneclipsed portions of the moon will be overexposed, and that will blow out the image. So if you're wondering why it's not red, it's just simply not bright enough. It's too bright right now for a camera to be able to resolve the reds without overexposing the uneclipsed portions of the moon. But again, the human eye is so much better than this, and it does a fantastic job at correcting for that high dynamic range. See, we're gonna start upping the exposure a little bit here, and hopefully we can start seeing that reds come out. There you go, folks. You can see clearly some of that red color of the eclipse portion of the moon showing here. And you can see exactly what I was talking about. As we are still very much in a partial phase of the eclipse, a lot of that deep reds are not adjusting well to the camera settings. Now, as we approach more closer to totality, we will be able to see more of those reds. CyberGhost asking, can a solar eclipse make you blind? Yes. I will quote my astronomy professor and at the University of South Florida, and he always said, never look at the sun. And wisest words I've ever heard, do not look at the sun without a pair of eclipse glasses or anything like that. We've got a nice view coming in from Brian in California, and he's showing more clearly those reds starting to come out. Beautiful. So what I'll do is I'll pull up the double view. Here's a view from Ohio as well. You can see more of those reds starting to slowly come out. But I'll pull up the double view and you should be able to see the sort of the uneclipsed portion still visible, as well as the eclipsed portion, so a red starting to coming out. So putting the two side by side, you can get a more high dynamic view. As you can see, folks, we are fighting some clouds at Brian's location. That being said, he's still being able to provide us with excellent views. But our view in Arizona is pretty cloud-free, fortunately. This is a shot coming in from our view in Ohio, and you can clearly see those reds starting to come out. This is fantastic. What's happening here is a series of exposures are being done with a digital SLR camera, and this is doing a great job at capturing those reds. But you can also see what I was talking about, where the one side of the moon is really overexposed, the other is pretty well exposed. So this is your first view of the reds of the eclipse. I apologize for my lack of commentary. I'm just making sure all the views are going well. Unfortunately, Brian's dealing with some clouds, but our view out in Ohio, thanks to Tegan, is fantastic. He's providing such a fantastic view of this eclipse. And again, he's taking a series of exposures to be able to capture that high dynamic range. But yeah, this is probably close to what the reds will look like to the naked eye. So if you go outside and look at the moon, you might see something like this. This is the partial lunar eclipse, guys. This is it. We're 36 minutes away from the maximum eclipse, but we're getting closer and closer, and we're definitely starting to see some of those nice deep reds coming out. Missy checking in with clear skies in Rockford, Illinois. We still have 300 people on Facebook and nearly 600 people watching on YouTube. That's great for so early in the morning. I can tell you, it is 3:27 in the morning, and it certainly feels like it. I can definitely feel my eyes starting to droop just a little bit over how late it's starting to get for me. But nonetheless, we're getting a fantastic view of that partial lunar eclipse now. In the beautiful reds. This is coming from Tegan through his DSLR camera and his Newtonian telescope. And he's just phenomenal. Like, this captures the dynamic range perfectly. And we'll be sharing these photos on our social media pages after the fact, but again, really beautiful. Hey folks, so we're about 30 minutes away from the maximum portion of this eclipse. So what you're going to see happen is the moon will continue to get redder and redder, and the exposed part, the overexposed part, will appear to translate towards the bottom of the moon as it passes around the curvature of the Earth until it leaves the Earth's shadow or umbra. One more time, folks, for those who are just tuning in who might be a little late, my name is Kyle. I'm with High Point Scientific, and you are looking at live views of tonight's partial lunar eclipse, the longest partial lunar eclipse since the year 1440. We are about 27 minutes away from the period of maximum eclipse, where the moon will be most fully encompassed within the Earth's shadow, or umbra. And as you can clearly see, those deep reds are starting to come out with a good view of the eclipse. Somebody just said they saw a shooting star. That must have been really cool to see during an eclipse. We've also got a fantastic view of the eclipse coming in from Brian. Looks like the clouds are parting a little bit for Brian, so we can see clearly the deep reds. Beautiful view coming in from Brian, and that's in California, between the clouds. Checking in our location in Arizona, we can also see some more views of that eclipsed portion of the moon making itself known. Unfortunately, it looks like we run into some camera problems with our camera out in Ohio. We're hoping to get that back here as soon as possible. Brian still has a decent view of the eclipse, and Vince does as well, and you can clearly see those eclipsed portions making themselves known. Really quickly again, folks, if you're out doing photography as we approach the portion of maximum eclipse, don't forget to take a look for the Pleiades, which are located just to the north of the moon tonight. The Pleiades, also known as M45, are some of the best, most beautiful open clusters there is in the night sky. It's also the most famous, named after the seven sisters of Greek mythology. So if you're out doing photography tonight, make sure you get the Pleiades in the field of view, and I cannot wait to see the images that people are taking tonight. Here you can see a view of two different locations through two different telescopes of the partial lunar eclipse. This is so cool to see. I cannot tell you guys how excited I am to see the eclipse like this. Even though I can't see it for myself due to the clouds, it's great just to be able to share what we can with you guys. Hey folks, I see what just happened there. I'm going to try to fix it. This is not the first time that's happened. So, there we go. I apologize for that. So we're just readjusting really quickly. While we're adjusting, we'll switch back to Brian's view. It looks like Brian's finally getting a relatively cloud-free view of the eclipse tonight. He's got a beautiful pink, dark red to it, and there comes a cloud right as I'm talking. It is what it is. We're very grateful for these views, though. There we go, we're getting a beautiful shot here. For the record, I also just went outside to try to view the eclipse myself. Again, for those who are just tuning in, I'm completely clouded out tonight. But I did notice that the moon appeared to be significantly, or the sky appeared to be significantly darker. So that's probably all I'm going to be able to see of the eclipse tonight, is the clouds just getting a little darker. Again, this view is coming from Tucson, Arizona. Really quickly, before we go any further, well, we can't stop it from going any further, but before I continue anymore, I want to give a quick shout out to our team members supporting the live stream tonight. Thank you guys so much for your views, for your assistance tonight. It was a bummer that we were clouded out here in Florida, but having the backup and the opportunity to help out with people with some really amazing views is just fantastic. So give a quick shout out to our helpers tonight with the live stream, because these views would not be possible without them. So we're about 12 minutes, give or take a few minutes, away from the period of maximum eclipse. But at this point, we're very close to the peak of the lunar eclipse. And wow, we got almost 750 people watching on YouTube. That's amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just to clarify really quickly, because I see people asking about it, I live in Florida, but I cannot see the view of the lunar eclipse tonight because it's completely clouded out. So instead, we have alternative views. This view is coming from Arizona. We also have another view coming from Ohio, and as well as California. Just to make sure, no confusion there. But if you're tuning in and you do happen to have a live, clear view of the moon, go outside. Take the opportunity now to take the live stream out there with you on your phone, but go out and look at the moon because it is spectacular. None of the views I have right now will do it justice to what you can see with a pair of binoculars or even a small telescope. So if this is your first ever lunar eclipse, don't waste it by going and staying inside. Go outside and enjoy views of the eclipse. So the blur you're seeing happening right now is our operator adjusting the view a little bit, recentering it. Again, this view is coming from Vince out in Tucson, Arizona, one of our team members with High Point Scientific, who has very graciously allocated some of his time to help with the live stream tonight. Very grateful for his help. We also have Tegan coming in from Ohio and Brian coming in from California. These guys are fantastic. I'm so grateful for them. Without them, this would not be possible. We have Brian's view now of the eclipse. You can see that we're still fighting clouds, unfortunately, there, but between the clouds we can clearly see the deep reds. We have 840 people watching on YouTube. If we can make that to 1,000 before the stream ends, that would honestly make my night. Not that I'm dissatisfied with 844 people watching. Incredibly grateful. It looks like our views from Ohio might be back, so let's go ahead and switch over to what our team member Tegan is seeing. And there you go, we have a beautiful view of the eclipsed moon. Let me fix the scene here. And we are about 8 minutes, give or take a few minutes, away from the maximum eclipse tonight. Really quickly, switching over to what might be the most awesome view of the night, we can see all three of our views out tonight, providing views of the lunar eclipse. Let me just adjust this out of the way a little bit. So just to clarify, the view on the upper left is provided by Brian out in California. The view on the upper right is provided by Vince out in Tucson, Arizona. And the view on the bottom is provided by our team member Tegan out in Ohio. All three of our team members tonight are helping us provide these stunning views of the eclipse for you guys. We have a question from Pamela asking, is the Leonid meteor shower still happening right now? I believe it peaked a few days ago, but people are reporting seeing some fireballs tonight during the eclipse, so it's possible a few of them might still be out. Alrighty, folks, the countdown timer says we have about a minute left till maximum eclipse, but as you can clearly see, we are already there. And you can clearly see those deep reds coming out on the moon. Spectacular views from all three of our locations. This is incredibly exciting to see. Wade checking in from Western Kentucky, and they say they just saw a shooting star. That is awesome. I see nearly 1,000 people watching the YouTube stream right now, as well as nearly 500 people watching the Facebook stream. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy the views. And you guys are looking at what might be the most beautiful display of celestial mechanics there is. Seeing the moon slip slowly behind the Earth's shadow is just so spectacular to see. It shows the universe and the night sky isn't static and things change. I just find this so inspirational and so incredibly cool to see, and I hope you guys find this cool too. And if you guys are out there and you're going to be posting your photographs of the eclipse on Instagram, for example, please feel free to use the hashtag HighPointScientific, and we'll take a look at your photos and we might even feature one of them. At the very least, I would personally love to check them out too. Really quickly, going to Tegan's view here exclusively, you can also see some of the stars starting to come out in the background. So that is super cool to see, that we're just bright enough to be able to see some of the background stars. Super cool to see. We can see Brian's also got a good view, and Vince has also got a fantastic view. Jay's asking which images are live, and all of them are live. Again, you are looking at a live view from 3 different locations of tonight's partial lunar eclipse. We are at maximum eclipse. This is it, guys. This is the lunar eclipse. You know the saying, twice the pride, double the fall? I guess the triple the pride here, but hopefully not the fall. Dan saying, hope to see you all again at the total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024. I will be live streaming that. That is absolutely in the cards. Sarah says they have classes in the morning. This is amazing and worth it, though. I feel the energy. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for tuning in. I really appreciate that. And I hope you enjoy class in the morning. Francis says Chicago has clear skies. So excited for the people in Chicago and Illinois. It sounds like that's a fantastic night. I used to live in Illinois, and clear nights on celestial events were so rare. Saw a question come up asking how far away is the moon? The moon is about 400,000 kilometers away from the Earth. Now that's generally speaking an average. The moon orbits in what's called an ellipse around the Earth, so there's points around its orbit called its perigee, where it's closer to the Earth, and there's points along its orbit where it's at its apogee, or its furthest point away from the Earth. And this lunar eclipse is happening when the moon's closer to apogee than perigee. But the moon's so far away that even moving at 11 kilometers per second, the Apollo astronauts took 3 to 4 days to get to the moon. So it's very far away. So far away, in fact, that it takes light 1 second to travel from the Earth to the moon. That accounts for the transmission delay the Apollo astronauts also encountered. Speaking of the Apollo astronauts, we also would be remiss in saying that NASA plans to land on the moon soon. Remiss in not saying, I should say. With the Artemis program, the first mission of the Artemis program will be launching in just a few weeks, and that will be the first capsule to orbit the moon, the first human-rated capsule since the 70s, so it's been quite a while. The goal was to land on the south pole of the moon with NASA's Orion capsule and SpaceX's Starship vehicle, and that'll be landing on the south pole of the moon hopefully by the year 2025. Something I'm really excited about. Human space exploration gets me really excited, and I just wanted to share that with you, that we are going back to the moon. Human beings will land there again soon. Just think though, if you were a NASA astronaut and you are on the moon right now, just how cool that view would be, because you'd be looking up and you would see the sun completely engulfed by the moon, or the Earth, excuse me. As you can tell, I'm getting my terms mixed up. It is 4 in the morning here. While I have you all here, and just to satisfy my curiosity, now that we have so many people tuning in, comment where you're watching this from. I asked it earlier, but again, I want to just see. I love seeing where everybody's checking in, and I'll try to call them out in the chat as I see them come up. We have Laura checking in from Ohio. Brooke checking in from Kentucky. We have Daniel checking in from West Virginia. Hello from West Virginia. Prakash, apologize if I mispronounce your name, is checking in from Australia. We have Renee checking in from Maine. Lots of people tuning in. This is great. Thank you guys so much. Somebody just said they saw 2 shooting stars. Those are likely a result of the Leonids. South Africa, Colorado, Belize, amazing. Colorado Springs, Honolulu, Cincinnati, Germany, Australia. So cool to see you all here. Now, Tyler's in Pensacola, Florida, and he's saying it's all clear there. You know, if I was just a couple hundred miles north. But down here in Central Florida, we don't have anything. It's just completely clouded out. So at this point, I would say we are past the period of maximum totality. What you're going to see happen now is the moon will continue to get brighter as it begins to leave the Earth's umbra. And eventually you'll see what we just saw earlier, but in reverse. We'll see the partial phases come out, and then eventually the moon will become completely uneclipsed and will continue about its merry way around the Earth. And again, I want to see your photos of the eclipse, so if you have an Instagram page, use the hashtag HighPointScientific, and we'll take a look at them, and we'll even share them too. Here's a view once again from Tegan's telescope, and as you can clearly see, Tegan is definitely starting to show the moon get brighter again as it begins to leave the Earth's shadow once more. Again, Tegan is taking a series of exposures looped through his DSLR camera and Newtonian telescope. We've also got really good views from Brian tonight, and you can clearly see the moon getting brighter once again. So excited the clouds finally parted for everybody, and we're being treated with fantastic views of the maximum eclipse period. And here's a view once again of all three of our telescopes and all three of our cameras providing views of tonight's lunar eclipse. just saw a question roll by, and they were asking, why doesn't a lunar eclipse happen every month? And that is a good question. We addressed this a little bit earlier on in the stream, but in case you weren't tuning in at the time, the reason a lunar eclipse does not occur every single month during the full moon is because the moon's orbit is actually inclined about 5 degrees to the ecliptic. The ecliptic is that path that all the planets follow around the sun. If you were to look up in the sky at the ecliptic, you would see a line of planets following the ecliptic, and that's that plane of all the planets are orbiting. Now, the moon, again, is being inclined 5 degrees to the ecliptic means relative to us, there's an inclination difference of from anywhere from 18 to 28.5 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. So, as a result, there are most times when the moon's going about its orbit around the sun, or backtrack, when the moon's going about its orbit around the Earth, it doesn't always hit that shadow. It'll go below it or above it, just depending on the moon's inclination. So twice a year we get these situations where the moon's orbit is lined up with the ecliptic, so we do get eclipses. And yes, like I said earlier, that does mean eclipses happen in seasons. There will be a solar eclipse in just a few weeks during the new moon. Unfortunately, that will only be visible in Antarctica. I won't be able to see it. Red Lotus saying, really red here in Texas. One last time, guys, in case you are just tuning in to the watch party tonight, you are looking at a live view of tonight's lunar eclipse from 3 different locations. My name is Kyle, and I'm your host for the night. It would really be awesome if you guys, I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry, I'm tired. Oh, what I was going to say is it'd be really cool if you guys haven't already on YouTube liked this video, given it a subscription, and on Facebook sharing it with your friends and family. We like producing this type of content. We want to continue doing these live streams, and seeing your support really means a lot to us because we have a lot more coming. We'll be doing a live stream of the meteor shower next month, and then we'll of course be live streaming lunar eclipses as they come up. But seeing your guys' interactions, it just means so much to us and to me particularly. Train of thought went to Hogwarts. Yes, sir, it did. It went straight into the wizarding school itself there for a second. I'm tired. It is 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. Eastern right now. So you guys can clearly see the moon is leaving that period of maximum eclipse, and we are well back into the partial phases, but you can still see that deep red. Over the next 30 minutes or so, that red's going to start disappearing as the partial eclipse makes itself sorry, let me backtrack here again. As the moon moves away from the Earth's shadow. We had a comment saying it doesn't look like it's coming out of the Earth's shadow. Very slowly. As a matter of fact, if you go back in the live stream by about 20 minutes, you can actually see the curvature of the Earth going around the perimeter of the moon. And that's super cool to see. Got a fantastic view here again from Brian, showing his views of the eclipse from California. Yvonne asks, it doesn't look very red here. Is it more red live? Yeah, again, this is a lot of it being due to the camera's inability to capture the high dynamic range. This isn't a total eclipse. It's very close to an eclipse, but a lot of that reds is being washed out by the brightness of the partial eclipse. It is more red in person from experience. Checking in on Tegan here, and Tegan also has a fantastic view of the eclipse as we slowly begin to leave the Earth's shadow. Question asking, when is the peak happening? The peak is over. The peak was about 30 minutes ago. We are now leaving the Earth's shadow and heading towards the end of tonight's lunar eclipse. Jessica asks, where is Tegan located? Tegan is located in Ohio. Cincinnati, Ohio, specifically. Vince is located in... I'll go through the reviews one by one and reintroduce them. Vince, our team member here, is located in Tucson, Arizona. Brian is located in, I believe, Oak Hills, California. And Tegan is located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Hey guys, so you're looking at a view from Vince, and we're seeing the uneclipsed portions of the moon making themselves more visible as the moon begins to slowly but surely leave the Earth's shadow. You can also see that curvature of the shadow as a result of the curvature of the Earth. Super cool. We also have a view from Brian here. You can see the reds beginning to become less prominent as the moon begins to leave the Earth's shadow once again. I have something of a funny comment I want to call out. They're saying the Earth is flat and stationary. Now, I'm not sure if you're joking or not, but you can clearly see a curved shadow here. Just a quick heads up, guys. We're probably going to be wrapping up the stream in about 10 minutes or so. So if you have any more questions you want to know about astronomy in the nighttime sky, please let me know in the comments and the chats, and I'll be more than happy to answer them really quickly. But before I sign off, I will say it has been an absolute pleasure to interact with each and every one of you tonight. This has been quite a long stream, going on for over 3 hours now at this point, and it's been fantastic to hear your vantage points, hear your views of the eclipse, and I hope this has been a special event for you guys. I hope this has been something you can really take heart in and be inspired by, because it certainly is something for me to see something like the moon do this. Effectively, what's going to happen for the rest of the stream is that the moon will continue to move out of the Earth's shadow, and it'll basically look the reverse of what we saw leading up to the maximum eclipse. See a question from Amanda asking, when will this end in Massachusetts? The eclipse will end in roughly an hour or so. Hello guys, I hope you guys have been enjoying these live views of the eclipse. The moon is now moving completely out of the Earth's shadow, and it is now 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we've been live now for a little over 3 hours, and it has been fantastic to speak to each and every one of you. Thank you guys so much for checking in for this live stream. It was great, and even though I couldn't see the eclipse myself due to the amount of cloud cover, it was great and just as good to be able to interact with each and every one of you. But until next time, our next live stream will be on, I think, December 13th for the Geminid meteor shower, so be sure to tune in for that. But as always, my name is Kyle. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and always remember to keep looking up.